A boy was watching sheep near a village when he got bored, so he shouted, "Wolf!" The villagers dropped everything and ran to help, but when they arrived, the boy was laughing. There was no wolf. The next day, he did it again. "Wolf! Wolf!" Again, they came running. Again, he laughed. Then, one afternoon, a real wolf came out of the trees. The boy screamed louder than ever, "Wolf, please help!" But this time, nobody moved. They thought it was another joke. By the time they realized he was telling the truth, the field was silent. The sheep were gone, and the boy learned that one lie can make even the truth sound fake.
A boy was playing with his best friend when a new kid joined their voice chat. The new kid barely spoke. Then he missed one shot and everyone started laughing. "Bro, delete the game. Your aim needs a doctor." The boy laughed too, because laughing was easier than being next. Then the new kid went quiet. No rage, no comeback, just silence. A few seconds later, the boy heard his best friend whisper, "Kick him." His finger hovered over the button. Then he muted his best friend instead. The new kid whispered, "Why did you do that?" "Because losing a round is better than becoming the reason someone logs off forever." A little boy climbed onto a dinostool and asked the waitress, "How much is an ice cream sundae?" "50 cents, she said. He pulled a handful of coins from his pocket and counted them slowly. "How much is just a plain scoop?" Other tables were waiting and her patience ran out. "35 cents, she snapped. The boy counted again. "The plain scoop, please." He ate quietly, paid at the register, and walked out. When the waitress returned to wipe his spot, she stopped cold. Beside the empty dish sat 15 cents, her tip. He hadn't been deciding what he could afford to eat, but making sure he could afford to be kind. When the boy skipped his lessons, he expected his mother to shout. Instead, she walked to the loom where she had been weaving for days. The cloth was almost finished. Thread by thread, pattern by pattern, it had taken her patience to make. Then she picked up scissors and cut it in half. The boy cried, "Why would you ruin it?" His mother said, "This is what happens when you stop halfway. Everything before it becomes wasted." He looked at the torn cloth and finally understood. She had not destroyed her work out of anger. She had destroyed something she loved, so he would not destroy his own future. A father asked both sons to help him repair the leaking roof before the storm. The older son smiled and said, "Of course, Dad, I'll be right there." Then he went back to his room and never came out. The younger son rolled his eyes and said, "Why is it always me?" His father said nothing, but an hour later, the younger son was on the ladder, passing nails, holding wood, and getting soaked in the rain. At dinner, the older son said, "I told you I would help." The father looked at his dry shoes, then at the younger son's muddy hands, and he said, "Promises sound nice, but love is the person who still shows up after complaining." He walked into the pub carrying a life-sized cardboard cutout of his dead best friend. You see, Lee had planned one last night out with his friends, but after a 2-year battle with cancer, he died before the trip happened. So his friend Darren ordered a cardboard version of him and brought him anyway. 40 friends gathered, took him from pub to pub, danced with him, sang with him, and made sure he was still in every group photo. And when people asked why they were carrying a cardboard man, one friend simply said, "Lee missed the trip, but we weren't letting the trip miss Lee." These are school rules that sound fake, but are actually real. First, in Japan, students don't just go to class. They help serve lunch, eat in the classroom, and clean the school themselves. So if you spill milk, congratulations, you're the janitor. Then in the Philippines, some students have to wear anti-cheating hats during exams. And they don't just wear normal hats. Some make a warrior's helmet, Steve's head, or even a cardboard chainsaw. But the strictest one is in Britain, where one school punishes students for slouching, walking too slowly, and even times their bathroom breaks. A girl watched her mom count coins for medicine. The bottle cost more than they had. So the girl took a plastic cup and stood outside their apartment building, not begging, asking neighbors if they had one small chore. Carry bags, sweep steps, water plants. Most people gave her almost nothing. One coin, then another and another. By evening, the cup was heavy enough to pay the pharmacy. Her mom cried and said, "You fixed something too big for a child." The girl shook her head. "I didn't fix it all at once. I just kept adding small things until it reached the top." That night, her mom got the medicine and the girl finally let herself sleep. Everyone expected one graduate to cross the stage, but Michaela walked up with her service dog, Sadie. Sadie was not there for attention. She had gone to classes, labs, late-night study sessions, and when Michaela's body gave warning signs, Sadie was the one who noticed first. So after Michaela received her diploma, everyone thought the moment was over. Then a faculty member came back with a bone wrapped like a diploma and handed it to Sadie. People laughed at first, then they understood. Michaela did not graduate alone. The dog beside her had carried her through college too. A man once bought a box of junk from a bankrupt company. Inside was a gray console that should not exist. It said PlayStation on top, but the controller ports were from Nintendo. At first, people online thought it was fake because Nintendo and Sony were supposed to be enemies. But in the early 90s, they had built prototypes together. The deal collapsed, and almost every prototype disappeared, but his one survived in an office box for years. When experts finally tested it, it turned on. Then it went to auction, and it was sold for $360,000. A father hired a painter to paint his old boat, but the man did something nobody asked for. He noticed a small hole below the waterline and quietly sealed it before painting over it. Then he took his payment and went home. Days later, the father froze in the kitchen. His 2 sons had taken the boat out fishing that morning, and he had forgotten all about the hole. He ran to the shore expecting the worst, but there they were, dragging the boat in, laughing, completely dry. That night, he knocked on the painter's door, holding more money. "You already paid me," the father shook his head. "That was for painting my boat. This is for saving my sons."
A younger son went to his father and asked for his inheritance early. He took the money, left home, and spent it on a fast life that disappeared just as quickly. Then famine came. Hungry and ashamed, he found himself feeding pigs and wishing he could eat what they ate. At last he said, "I will go home and ask to be treated like a servant." But while he was still far down the road, his father saw him, ran to him, and held him before a single apology was finished. The older brother grew angry, but the father told him, "Your brother was lost, and now he is found. Sometimes love does not wait for you to deserve it." 2 best friends, Damon and Pythias, were brought before a cruel king. One of them was sentenced to die. The condemned man made one last request. He wanted to go home first to say goodbye to his family. The king laughed, but his friend stepped forward and said, "Keep me here until he returns." Days passed. Then the final hour came, and the king smiled, certain the prisoner had escaped. But just as the execution was about to begin, Damon came running into the square, covered in dust. He had kept his promise. The king stared at both men and said he had never seen such loyalty. He set them free and asked to be their friend. A man stood beneath a dark doorway, waiting for the best friend he had not seen in a decade. Before separating, they promised to meet at that exact spot 10 years later, no matter what happened. A police officer stopped and asked why he was there. The man smiled, showed his expensive watch, and said, "My friend Jimmy will come. He was always loyal." The officer walked away. Minutes later, another man arrived, greeted him, then suddenly placed him under arrest and handed him a note. "Bob, I came on time, but when I recognized the wanted man, I couldn't arrest my oldest friend myself." "Dad, can I play 10 more minutes?" "No, you said that an hour ago." "Please, my friend is waiting." "You've never even met him. That doesn't mean he's not real. It means you're choosing a screen over sleep." "I'm choosing not to leave him alone." "Move." "Dad, wait. No more begging. Today is his birthday." "So?" "He told everyone at school. Nobody came." "Nobody?" "He made a server and waited." "Is your dad mad?" "A little." "Tell him I'm sorry. I just didn't want to be alone." "What game?" "Minecraft." "Room for one more?" "Happy birthday, kid. Show me where to build." A soldier took his Game Boy to war and played it during quiet moments between orders. But then the barracks were hit, and the little gray console was burned so badly it looked like melted trash. The case turned black, the buttons were scarred, and the screen looked completely dead. Most people would have thrown it away without even trying. But when someone finally put in batteries and a Tetris cartridge, the impossible happened. The screen lit up. The game still worked. Nintendo later placed the burned Game Boy behind glass as proof of how tough the old console was. This kid saw an old man standing near a Pokestop and asked, "Where did you catch that Snorlax?" The man smiled and said, "In front of my wife's grave." Every day, he walked there, opened the game, and hunted while visiting the woman he had lost. Then the kid asked, "What did you name it?" The old man grinned and said he gave it his wife's name because my wife is very strong. The story spread across Twitter, but his sweetest confession came after. He still had one dream: evolve his Whalmer before he died. Somehow, the grave visit had stopped being only a goodbye. It became one last adventure they still shared. A streamer was mid-game when her viewers suddenly saw a man with a gun step into frame behind her. At first, the chat thought it was a prank until she disappeared from the camera and another robber entered the room. The stream kept running while the robbers forced her and her roommate into a bedroom, completely unaware that hundreds of gamers were watching live from their computers. The chat turned from jokes to panic. Some viewers tried to find her location, others messaged anyone who might know her, and one person finally got the warning to police in Arizona. Minutes later, officers arrived at the house. A boy with a speech impediment joined a ranked match with 4 strangers. Before the game, he typed one message: "A disease took my teeth, so my voice sounds different. Be nice." Then he made his first call out. He's 100% trolling. Just mute him. He apologized and promised to stop talking. They kicked him anyway. No rage, no comeback. He just sat there, lived in front of a few viewers. One of them couldn't let it go and posted the clip. By midnight, 5,000 people were in his stream. Then, the donations paid for the eye surgery his family couldn't afford, and Pro Team sent him a contract. China once tried to ban gaming for every kid in the country, but millions of them kept outsmarting the system for years. When the government blocked players under 18 after 10 p.m., kids simply made accounts under their parents' names. When every game started checking real IDs, they borrowed grandmas instead. The gaming company Tencent even built face scans that catch a 60-year-old spending like a teenager checking 6 million faces a day. But years later, the richest gaming company on earth still can't beat children.